baseball, not always the best team wins, right? You got to still go out there and get it done.
Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast Baseball Talk. As always, powered by our good friends over at Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Go check them out. Register your team. Get yourself going. We got 7 tournaments we're going to be at. Come see Youth Baseball Midwest. Our Saturdays at the park, we have a great ton of fun. Interviews. We got some highlights. We're going to be chatting it up with these kids. We got trivia. We got baseball card giveaways. We're busting cards. We're giving away baseball cards. We gave away some pretty good cards last year with some Shohei Ohtani's, some Nolan Arenado's. He's big. And, you know, Yachty's always big in St. Louis. Giving away some Yachty baseball cards. Always fun. Please come check us out. We got 7 tournaments. Go to our website, youthbaseballmidwest.com. You can see which ones they are. And plus our 14U Super 7 Invitational that's been out there. Please, we'd love to see you at this Invitational as we're heading into the high school season. So, game7baseball.com. Oh, man. Choke myself. Follow us. Socials, if you want to keep up to date on what's going on. Follow our social pages on X. You can follow us at YBM_cast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Now, you can follow us at Youth Baseball Midwest. Today on the show, folks, joining us on a Thursday. A little different spin here. We have with us the guru on the Prime Sports Call-In link, Mr. Kevin Moulder, Prep Baseball, Missouri Scouting Director. Good to see you.
Excited to be here. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Folks, Prime Sports are good partners over there. They are the official gear provider of Youth Baseball Midwest. And if you become, go check them out. 3 locations. I think the one is still down, but order online, Fenton, Chesterfield. Go into the stores, check those out. Great gear. They had a big demo bat sale going on. I think it's over now. I'm not quite sure, but you can demo bats. You can check them out. Go see our friends at Prime Sports Midwest. Tell them YBM sent you. And if you're a club member, think about joining the YBM Club. We got some great discounts and great stuff. It's a lot of fun. YBM Club is something that we started this year. And we appreciate the support we get with all of our subscribers and whatnot. But if you want to support us and continuing to help us grow, YBM Club helps do that. We have a 50% off legacy membership right now. Join the club, get exclusive content, exclusive discounts. We appreciate it very much. And we want to say thank you to all the folks that have already signed up. We appreciate the support here at Youth Baseball Midwest. So thank you. I got some new hats, Kevin, from the coaches clinic. I got Boonville down there, Coach Simpson. And we got a coaches preview coming up with Justin Schmidt, North Point right there. And of course, Coach Josenberger from Staley dropped off a hat. So I want to say thank you to all the coaches for dropping hats. Appreciate it.
Love the additions.
Right? It's very nice. I like that. We should have probably put some club hats down. We're going to talk, but we will. Talking some youth baseball. Today, though, it is a little different. I got Kevin on here. I shot him up about this subject. We're going to be talking with some clubs. We're going to go out and do some youth baseball focused podcasts because we've been working in youth baseball. And when I say youth baseball, folks, we're talking, from 7U up to 14U. It's all youth baseball to me, high school kids, but, high school kids, it's a little different dynamics and things of that nature. But youth baseball, we've been doing it since 2017. And I've been around youth baseball since my son started. I was umpiring since about 2004. Saw how the clubs kind of started being ushered into the scene and whatnot, because it was all pretty independent teams back in the day. You had maybe the gamers, the prospects were starting to get moving a little bit there. Um, and there's been a lot of changes along the way, wouldn't you say, Kevin?
Yes, and especially if we're talking about the youth scene, it has changed dramatically over the past 10 years or so. Certainly.
We wanted to discuss some things because how healthy do you think youth baseball is right now?
I would like to know the definition of healthy. What you mean? I do think that the interest level is extremely high. I know that going around to these parks that I find myself in, that the leagues are all sold out. So in terms of engagement and that area, I would say it's extremely healthy. Um, if we want to talk about develop, maybe if you look at it differently, you might have a different word than healthy. I'm not sure.
I agree with you. I know that's a pretty broad statement. I loved how you answered that because I agree with you. I think overall, there's a lot of kids playing baseball. Um, we do have a lot of teams. There's a lot of kids involved in the sport. And I think it is pretty healthy as far as that's concerned.
I'll
Uh,
also say that some of the top end players are extremely impressive.
right, right. And yeah, you got a lot of good quality teams across the state, around the Midwest. Um, we've been on our winter workout tour. We're going to be releasing some of those. We were down in Cape with the Missouri Bulls. Uh, Todd Pennington, I think, does a fantastic job down there. Really enjoyed that part of it, and we're going to be going down again to see the Jackson Tribe. They got a new facility and things like that. We were over with. I was really impressed with Josh Kinney's group. He's got the O'Fallon Bombers across the way over there in the O'Fallon Township, Illinois, and we got some. We were with the St. Louis Pirates too. That's from way back in the day with Rick Strickland, and Justin Rosen has taken over there and he's moved it down into the younger ages. And it was really interesting watching his philosophy and how they train the kids and how they do with that. So you'll have to watch the deal, but it was interesting. So you see a lot of different philosophies within the different training methods and different things, and not everybody does it the same either.
No, everyone has kind of different spins on it, certainly. So it is fascinating, especially in my shoes, just seeing, everyone's different spin. And I will also say, especially at the youth levels, full disclosure, I have a 10-year-old son and an 8-year-old son. So I am in the youth baseball scene by default. I coach both my son's teams and have a lot of fun with it. Um, the teams at those ages, it's not necessarily a direct reflection on like their high school teams, if you will. So it's not like they're doing the exact same. Uh, uh, I don't necessarily look at it as a reflection upon the high school age team, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. It makes complete sense. And that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on some of these things. And one of the first ones, and it's been something that's been bannered around and started way back. And you get up into especially in certain clubs and different places, people, the higher you go, dads aren't coaching as much now. You got a paid coach and things like that. But youth baseball, I've got a spreadsheet and I've got it open here, and I started doing this spreadsheet quite a while ago, Kevin. And I've got just on my spreadsheet right now, and this is just different clubs around the state of Missouri, and this is just the state of Missouri, I have 79 listed. Well, if you put just one team per age group, that's a lot of teams. That's a you're never, dad coaching is, I think, the backbone of youth baseball. That's my thought.
Absolutely. And I'll jump in and say that, especially some of the well-known organizations will have, 4 to 6 teams, even 7, 8 teams at certain ages. So it's a lot more than 79 per age group, if you will.
Right. And that's the thing. So when we're talking about dad coaches, what has been your, you got so many teams. We need dad coaches. We need coaches, but your perspective on this, as you've seen everything shift now that you're coaching your sons, you are evidently a lot of experience, but what would you say to dads who maybe don't have, maybe just played some high school ball, maybe they didn't play any ball at all? That's possible, right?
Yeah. I think, coach, someone's going to coach these teams, and they're not all going to be, quote unquote, professional or paid coaches. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with parent coaching and dad coaching. In fact, I highly support it. It's, I applaud those that are engaged with those teams and are giving their time to help these young boys get better at baseball and fall in love with the game, hopefully, and get them to a spot where they want to work at it and become better. And that's an admirable job to have. And there is no other way to do it than to have dad-led or parent-led teams.
Yeah.
At the younger levels. I'm not talking about, obviously, we're talking about true youth baseball, not high school baseball. Not
yeah.
Yes.
And but okay, but even into that, I don't know. There's some question marks I have there, because you even have some of these kids, some of these clubs putting paid coaches on a 14U squad. And I will say this, I've watched it, seen it. I'm calling games. I watch a young man who's come back from college, who's goes back to his organization. They say, "Hey, you want to coach a team in the summer?" Yeah, it's some extra money. I understand it. I think that's great, and I applaud the kids for coming back to it. But what I've seen is, it's few and far between where there's a true investment from this young person into the kids and understanding what it means to coach. And I think sometimes we don't take the time to talk to these young people as they're coming back. And, I've seen it as young as 13, some of these young men coming back and coaching teams and stuff. Do they want to coach? Is that something that they are even thinking about into the future? Do they want to become maybe a high school coach? Do they want to do those types of things? And I think that has an impact, because if I've got a dad who's invested in their kids and invested in that thing, I think it's a better situation than a young man who's coming back and just kind of going through the motions and not necessarily invested in the kids themselves. And I think we have to look at some of that situation.
That's exactly right. And I think sometimes maybe the quote unquote dad coach gets a bad rap. And my question is, what do people expect? Like, who do you think you're going to get to coach your 9-year-old baseball team? And if you are paying a coach, who do you think who do you think you're paying to coach this team? The best coaches are going to be coaching at the top levels of baseball. Now, I am not saying there aren't good paid coaches at the youth level, because there certainly are. But if you go at the amount of youth teams there are, certainly you're going to have to rely on on dad coaches, and just I'll look at myself, for example. Having played collegiately and getting into the coaching ranks, I am much better positioned to coach an 8U and 10U baseball team today than I was even 15 years ago, despite having similar knowledge and skill set, et cetera, that I have currently. I'd like to think I've improved a little bit, but the main thing that's changed with me is I've had 3 kids. I know how to deal with elementary school, grade school kids. When I was 25 years old, despite having a good amount of knowledge, especially for a youth level baseball team, I would have all the knowledge you would ever need to coach a youth baseball team. I might not be the best equipped at myself at 25 to go coach a 10 or 11-year-old baseball team, just because I wouldn't know how to manage and deal with those kids. So I think that's a huge piece of it that does give the parents a big advantage. Now, and I think this is where you get the clubs tied in. And the important role to me with the clubs is they're not necessarily coaching the players. Obviously, those clubs have high school players, and obviously I deal with them with that for my job, my day job. But for my secondary job of coaching the youth players, I feel like the club's responsibility is to coach the coaches. All right, guys, here's a practice plan. Here are the things, we got an 8-year-old baseball player, an 8-year-old baseball team. Here are the things, here are the expectations we're going to have for these guys as 8-year-olds. We're going to play catch the right way. We're going to know how to run through first base. We're going to know how to round the bag. We're going to know where all the defensive positions are. We're going to learn to talk defensively. We're going to know how to step up to the plate and be in the right position, just the correct batter stance, how to stand, and just how to play baseball, basically, is what we're teaching. And then at 10 years old, we're going to know cuts and relays, and we're going to know it's just a building block, and we're going to build it. We're going to stack on this every single year. And, clearly there's going to be 8-year-old teams that can do cuts and relays. And then there's also going to be, 11-year-old teams where we're still teaching them how to kind of do some more elementary stuff. So kids are going to come at different paces, and that's why there's different levels of youth baseball, because some are going to be out ahead a little more than others. But I think that's the job of the club, is to kind of sort the kids, get them in the right appropriate groups, and then to coach your coaches to help these kids get better and better.
I love that, Kevin. That's spot on. I couldn't agree more, because the conversations have to be had. You got to build relationships with the parents. And I know there are clubs out there, but that's usually higher level, drop your kid off. That's good. Well, but I don't know you yet. And that's a fair thing. And, you're asking a lot of parents to put trust into what you're doing and this and that, but sometimes, and this is what I've heard on that side, is the clubs aren't willing to talk to the parents because, face it, parents have created somewhat of a bad reputation. And it's a small percentage, but we have this bad taste because people get overly carried away about certain things. Okay, fair enough. But what you were talking about with that development process, coaching coaches, I think that is where the conversation truly needs to go.
Yeah, and there's multiple pieces to coaching the coaches. Not only are we coaching the coaches to coach the players, we're also coaching the coaches about expectations for the team. I think the clubs that do it right, they're educating their parents and their coaches and their players, because, hey, I'm going to give you a list of things that we're going to have all 8U baseball players be able to do in our club. Okay. Cool. Step one. Step two is, hey, I'm also going to set the expectations. And I have an 8-year-old team and a 10-year-old team. And I have this talk with my parents. And truth be told, my team, we have a couple nice teams. There, it's not a quote unquote select team. This is most of these kids go to the same school. There's a couple from outside that I know through baseball relationships. They're all friends. Like there's no quote unquote ringers on this team, but we have a talk before every season, and I give this talk every single year. Now it's turned into more of a reminder, but hey, we're not going to talk to umpires, other than hey, how you guys doing? If you see them walking up, we're not going to yell. We're not going to argue about calls. The coaches will, if there's something where we feel like we're being cheated, or obviously there's all sorts of different rules, and depending on your tournament or the age, the umpires could get confused about, hey, at this age there's a balk warning or there's no balk warning. Yeah, we'll make sure we're playing by the right set of rules. If someone, if there needs to be a reminder or something, we're not going to get cheated, but we're also not going to go argue out and safe at first base, or over every single strike three call. Like these umpires are basically in the same spot your son is at this point in their career. They're learning this stuff. A lot of times these guys are still, at younger levels. Now there's some older umpires as well. But the point is, we're not going to argue that type of stuff. And we're also not going to get involved with other fans and yell back and forth. We're going to cheer for our group. We're going to cheer on our team. And, when Johnny makes a horrific error on the infield, we're just going to be supportive. And if Johnny can't throw strikes on the mound, that's another rule I have. We're only giving positive comments to our pitchers, because that's one of those things that a lot of kids fear doing is pitching. And so we go with the over encouraging positive comments. Not that we won't coach them, and truthfully I will coach some kids hard, and hold people accountable, but it's never yelling because you didn't get a job done. Will I yell if a kid's jogging down the line? Yes, absolutely, because that's an effort and accountability that they're going to be held accountable for that. Mm-hmm. But for, kicking a ground ball or throwing 6 balls in a row on the mound, I promise that kid wants to make the play. I promise that kid wants to throw strikes. He's trying hard. We want to be supportive of that. We want there to be positive reinforcement behind that. So I think that's another important aspect of club coaching, clubs coaching their coaches.
I agree. I love that, Kevin. It's exactly right. Because I've umpired 9U, 10U baseball, and I always knew I was in for a long day when the coaches come up and that 9U coach looks at me and says, "What's your strike zone?" It's in the rule book.
And here's another great example. I could give you the rule book strike zone, right? Yeah. But if we're doing 9U is when they start pitching, and I just went through that, and that's the toughest year of baseball you're going to experience. Mm-hmm. So my 10-year-old group just went through that last year. My 8U group's going to start it this fall. I don't want them to go by the letter of the law of the strike zone for the first couple of years of kid pitch, right? Like they're going to give some liberal strike zones, and I think that's a good thing. And we want the kids also, on the flip side, we want the kids to swing the bat. So, if it's around the zone, I'm not talking about a ball 2 inches off the ground or 3 feet outside or above the helmet. But
if you're around the plate, it's a strike, right?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And that's what you always knew is like, Coach, we're going to take care of this, just let's just play the game. Focus on coaching the kids. And when you start worrying about those types of things rather than it sets and that's, because what you said earlier about kids talking to the umpires and whatnot. And then you get a 9-year old turn around and look at you like, oh, that wasn't a strike, you know? uh, okay.
I think home plate umpire at that first couple years, the 9 and 10U, maybe even 11U, it is the toughest home
It
plate
is.
assignment there is. Like I'd rather do a high school game, and not to mention the strike zone part. You also got the catching aspect of it,
It's
which you're seeing,
dangerous.
yeah, in varying different levels.
Uh-huh.
Um, and you brought up talking to the umpire. That's something else I talk to the players about. Starting at the pitching age, I haven't done this yet with the 8-year-olds, but with my 10-year-olds, especially the catchers, I don't have a you can't talk to the umpire rule. We work on addressing adults and yes sir, if the umpire wears
Mm-hmm.
a foul ball off the mask, or unfortunately at that age, like you'll see a bounced ball, the catchers don't, there's balls to get through and hit the umpire directly. Sir, are you okay? That type of stuff. To me, it's like you don't want the players being scared of the umpires. You want them to be able to talk to them and learn how to talk to those guys in a respectful manner, like you would see at the college game or the professional game.
Yeah. I love that. That's good. We got to have the dad coaches, and I think that's the next step there. Where I don't know. I mean, it's me. I've talked to you about what we want to do with the YBM club and the things about dad coaching. We did the clinic a few years back, and I want to continue to grow that with clubs and how we develop dad coaches, because the more we can do that and the more we can bring those people into a better form of coaching, it is a more strategic thing to help these kids continue to grow as baseball players. And it makes the high school game better.
Absolutely, it's the bloodline for our high school baseball.
Right.
We talk about this. We were on with Coach McGee last week, and I
Mm-hmm.
teased him a little bit about his youth organization. Just saying, hey, when we were at the state tournament, I saw, a couple of hundred 9 and 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds running around in Willard hats, and I'm like, oh, here's the next wave. And you know, at some of those smaller towns, they're able to get their hands on those kids earlier. So, specifically in the larger cities, yeah, it's important to know that the kids in your school district, if you're a high school team, are playing some organized baseball where they're learning some of the right stuff.
Absolutely. Kevin, when you talking about an 8U and a 10U team that you have, uh, back when my son started playing ball, you go through, we were at the SPAA playing machine pitch, and getting everything going. 9U was the first kid pitch stuff and things like that. And this was before a lot of the clubs started really making a big splash and things of that nature. And there were what we called select teams, and you made mention that it's not necessarily a select team, but um, that's kind of what you saw a team. If they were a select team, that means this coach, this particular, had handpicked or selected kids from a tryout. But most part, there's a lot of independent teams, and you would have different things like that. But every now and again, you'd see this one team that had these select kids, and they would beat you up pretty good sometimes. And maybe they would travel out to a different place and go play ball. But that was when you said select, that was like, oh, they're a good team. Um, the 9U team I had was pretty much 8U 9U team that I had was pretty much the same team that I started with at 7U with the machine pitch. And why are you going to cut a kid at 9U, for crying out loud? I mean, that's just to me, it's not even, they're 8 and 9 years old. And
So
I just
go ahead, finish up.
I
I
just
was going to say,
go ahead, Kevin.
all right, I was going to say, I am passionate about this, and um, I think it's not necessarily, hey, we have to have all the best players playing together. I do think it is smart to have similar skill levels bunched together because especially at the younger levels, and like my 8U team that I have is a pretty nice ball club. We're pretty competitive, and like I said, it's almost all but two kids go to the same elementary school, but it's a team of younger brothers. A lot of these guys have older brothers on my 10U team, so quite honestly, my 8U team is better than my 10U team was at this age. But they've just been around it. So with that group, we played 8U baseball as 7, and then this year we're repeating. But I think my 10U team was not ready for something like that. What I was going to kind of say is I don't think it's bad to necessarily group kids with like-minded, because there's kids at 8U that have struggled playing a game of catch, and then there's others that are phenomenal catch players and strong. So if you're dealing with a huge discrepancy and you can't play certain kids at certain positions, I think that's where it becomes an issue. Not we're breaking down kids positionally. Maybe, hey, this kid is best suited for center field and shortstop because he's good hands and he's fast, and this kid's more of a first baseman, catcher. That's not the type of thing I'm worried about. I'm more talking about, like, hey, we can't play this kid at third, first, or the middle infield because if someone hits a line drive at him or someone throws in a ball from the outfield, I'm worried he might get his nose broke. That's where I think it is appropriate to separate the talent. And I don't know if you want to call that a tryout or
Right.
cutting a kid, but I do think, hey, there's this group of 8-year-olds that's a little further along, and this group of 8-year-olds that's they're all in the development phase, but is still really learning the game. I think that's where it makes sense to separate, not only in competition but for team um, reasons. At the same time, on this, Brian, I have another thought on that. Is like, you don't want to go too extreme with this, in my opinion, because I see these types of teams, especially like when you get beyond the machine pitch and you start to get to like 9, 10, 10, certainly 11U, the talent starts to condense. It's a kind of a pyramid effect. But there's some really good teams and some really good players. But lost in that, if you are the 10th best player on an 11-man team and you're playing for, one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the area, well, if you're the 10th best player and you are only getting to play corner outfield, um, is that better for you than if you were playing on the 6th or 7th best team and you're getting to play center field and shortstop or first base or catcher and playing multiple positions? I can make an argument for you. Your growth is going to be stunted despite playing on the quote better team versus winning more championships and whatnot. Whereas if you were playing on the 7th best team in the area instead of the 2nd best team in the area, you're getting to play the so-called premium positions, batting towards the top of the lineup. Are you going to be in a better spot 3 or 4 years from now? That's just something to think about. I don't know if I have the correct answer or not. I know that there's certain people that would say, well, playing with that type of competition will raise the bar, and
I don't
it's just
necessarily look at it that yeah, I don't necessarily look at it that way in the sense of, yeah, you can say a 10th best player, but at 8, honestly, I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 kids that really separate themselves skill level wise at that age group anyway. You is comparable, throwing, catching. I agree with you in the fact of, you don't want a kid who just really can't catch a ball being thrown like that and get his face busted or anything like that. But when you're talking about 8, 9, I don't think if you got a really solid team, you got 10 kids uh, on that squad. I think that's up to the coach at that point to really let those kids play out. Put those kids in places where, hey, you're going to get an opportunity to succeed or fail. And I think you can have those conversations with parents, and then we can take at 9, 10, we can start saying, hey, we think you need to be with this group over here. And, as you start moving up 10, 11, the separators begin. You're going to see, and I think you're going to see which kids really want to play or practice and get better. And that's my thought process to that as far as 8 and 9 years old, because that one kid may still be a good athlete, but he's just not quite getting things and whatnot. You work with him, put him in a position, see what he does, and you can say, hey, at this point, folks, we've given your child an opportunity here to succeed within this group. We feel his development will be much better suited if he goes here and sets in that place. But you've given those kids in a similar, what you think is a similar, even if he's number 10 on that roster, is he really number 10 at 8U? I don't know. I just don't know. That's just my thought to that.
Yeah, and my comment was about 10U and 11U baseball.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And the other big piece of that, and for those with 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds to remember, I have seen some phenomenal machine pitch hitters become terrible 9U hitters. It is a different game when that ball's coming alive out of a hand as opposed to coming in off a machine. That first time you get hit by a pitch or have one thrown above your head or behind your head, it does change the equation significantly. So, you got to. I think it kind of all starts really at 10U is kind of when you can start to figure some things out.
I agree. I agree completely with that, Kevin. Because you don't know who's going to. You really don't. Because they're 8, and you're hoping you're going to find. You're still trying to get them to learn how to understand what it means to stay focused on the field without chasing the daisies and.
I thought you were going to say tie your shoes. I was just thinking about how many shoes I've tied on the field.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man, exactly. And it's just reality of it. And I think we get select baseball, and today that I don't think we use that terminology as much. Everybody's going to a tryout, but what are you trying out for? And to me, I love the way, you've got a bunch of the kids, they're all friends that go to the same school, they'll probably end up. I love that part of it. Because to me, that fits more to what youth baseball, you're going to grow up playing with your friends. Maybe you have some kids that'll move away. Maybe you have some kids that want to go do something else. It happens because you don't know yet. But I love that part of it. It should be, we're going to put these kids together. They're maybe in high school. You maybe have one or two that'll end up playing against, as you said, but I love that part of it. I think that's a great aspect of the youth baseball scene.
It does help you fall in love with the game when you're playing with friends too. And I think what's better than that? Getting to play baseball on a late spring or summer night with your buddies, and getting to play a game maybe out later than mom wants it to start, and getting to go to the concession stand after the game. Like, that's stuff that makes you love baseball. I still remember those days. growing up and I've honestly tried to recreate that, not only for my sons, but both the teams that I'm involved with.
I love that, Kevin. Travel ball is what we call it today. And, I see a lot of these teams, talking about, oh man, we're going to go here and we're going to go there and go here. And my question is always, why?
So my great question, there are reasons to travel when we get to high school. You need to, in fact, from a recruiting standpoint, and it becomes a legitimate thing. That question's been raised to me with my teams, and with my younger one in particular. I don't want to sound too silly, but when we were winning games by a significant margin, I didn't decide to go to Houston, Texas to find someone that could beat us at 7U. What I did was I put us at the 8U level, and I knew we'd lose some games, and that's good. And my goal with both my teams, with my 10U team, I do not. If you're going undefeated, I think you've done a poor job managing your schedule. You want to find some resistance. Now, you probably want to be, above 500 overall, but you want to get challenged. So if you find yourself dominating a certain league or age group, then I would advise, if you're 10 and you're 30-1, go play against some 11-year-olds and see how that works for you. You don't have to travel to Florida or LA to find the country's best 10-year-old team. It's real simple. You can just go to the same complex you've been going to and go up one age group, and those kids are all going to be bigger and stronger for the most part, and you'll find plenty of good competition at that level then. And you can do this for a tournament. You might want to stay in that certain league, or vice versa. You might play in a league versus above your age and play tournaments at your age. So there's ways to do that, but I would highly advise people, if you find yourself where you're winning 90, 95, 100% of your baseball games, just step up one age group. And that's a great way to find competition, because I do think that is important. You don't, it sounds silly to say this as a competitive person and a guy that coached collegially for 16 years, you actually don't want to win every one of your baseball games at the youth level. That you want to find some resistance. There's a lot of lessons and value in playing close competition, even coming up on the wrong end of some competition to challenge your kids.
I agree. And on my side, when I've asked that question, why, I get a lot of people just say, well, we're just tired of playing the same teams. And that's the answer I get quite a bit. And my response to them has become, well, wait a minute. Let's stop and look at the situation. When your child gets into high school, they're going to play a conference schedule. They're going to play the same teams every year. Most non-conference schedules, they'll play the same teams every year. If you're fortunate enough to play collegiate baseball, you're going to play a conference schedule which consists of the same teams every year. And most non-conference schedules are pretty much the same teams. If by some astronomical chance you make it to the bigs, you are going to play the same 32 teams every year. There is no different team. And I know sometimes people, and I think it goes to people go, well, it's the competition. I loved what you said, because that to me is the right answer. Traveling somewhere else because it's a different team is not a good answer to me, because this is what we're trying to set these kids up for, and understanding what rivalries are. And if you start to get into 10U, 11U, 12U, and you're playing a team from across the town, you see them in the tournament and whatnot, and you keep getting your butt kicked, that doesn't mean to go travel somewhere else and see a different team. That means you got to step up and try and work to compete with that team and overcome that. And that's the challenges I think sometimes we're running away from.
Yeah, and I can think back to what Darren Sissel said about his son Titus. Is like, we're not going to play out of town tournaments until high school. And there was a kid that is in pro ball right now, is high draft pick by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and it worked out just fine for him. Now, I will put two caveats on this travel piece.
Okay.
Small town kids aren't afforded the same luxury. If you're in a small community, a small town, you are going to have to travel to literally find competition in teams to play. So, if you're from 2 hours outside of St. Louis or Kansas City, you are, or even if you live in Columbia, Missouri, you're probably going to have to go to Kansas City or St. Louis to play in some tournaments. That is certainly a true statement. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is, and I'm not the, necessarily the authority on this, but there can be some positive aspects of, hey, we want to do a fun weekend as a group with the kids, and we're going to go travel to Branson, or we're going to travel to Lake of the Ozarks, or wherever that location may be, and we're going to do this with our team as a kind of a bonding experience and a fun activity for the kids. If you're looking at it from that standpoint, I can see that as a very positive thing. But if you think that you need to go play 5 out of town tournaments to find good competition, I personally, I don't necessarily see I don't see that as the right lens until, you can make an argument in 8th grade because you can't play up at that point in the spring. I think that's kind of when it really gets going with that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. I agree with that because, and even at 14, 8th grade, you're talking about that, and then it's a matter of where are you traveling and why are you traveling there. I think the Cooperstown experience at 12U, if you want to have, I think that's a great thing, in those respects. And you have some of that kind of those things. I think, as you said, that's just an experience. Just I got to go just umpiring, and I thought it was fantastic. It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
And
that's the mindset. It needs to be something that's going to be fun. This is something we're going to have memories and stuff that makes them fall in love with baseball.
Exactly. If you win more than you lose, kudos to you, right?
Yeah.
And that's that. And I think that's the thing, because traveling isn't always necessary. Travel ball. Not every team is built for that anyway. And why do you want to go and do that anyway? Play in the competition you're at. Learn how to succeed within what you're dealing with just around here. And if you're at 14 and you think you want to go see what the other competition's like, because you're heading into high school and you're going to be you got a team. And I thought of this, Kevin. You're going to be going into high school. You're thinking about playing college baseball. If you can travel just within the state of Missouri and maybe, a little bit into Iowa or Illinois and find the kids that you're going to be recruited against. And that, you're as well aware of this. You don't have to travel way off this path or this path to find good baseball players around here, and kids that these colleges in the state of Missouri are going to be looking at as well as you. So how well, and I think you could make a case at 14U, how well do you stack up against the rest of the region if you're looking at that and you want to play collegiate baseball?
No, absolutely.
So those are things to me that are as far as pieces of the puzzle in that respect concerning travel baseball in that respect. But the last thing here I want to touch on, and you're right in the middle of it, and some of the things you've already dealt with it a little bit, but what is development to a 9-year-old?
So, yeah, the way I look at it is, did we improve? Whenever you start the season, whether that, like my teams are all hitting, we've started practicing already. We do once a week. It's not overbearing. It's not what I would consider too much. And some teams will do 2 times a week or something, maybe 3, and that's great. But are you better at the end of the season than when you started? And I would just have a list of checklist of, hey, this is what I want to accomplish this season, and it shouldn't be, I want to win this tournament or I want to win the league. That's the stuff I could care less about. The only reason I care whatsoever about any of that would be just to make sure my kids have a positive experience. I might find a tournament that I know my team can be fairly successful in, just so the kids feel that sense of pride and accomplishment for advancing in a tournament, winning a championship, making the championship game, whatever. I get that. But that isn't what I'm judging my seasons off of. I'm judging my seasons off of, did my players get better? Are they improving as ball players? Whether that's pitching, hitting, fielding, etc. That's, to me, how I judge how our season went. Not our win-loss record, not how many tournaments we won, not how many championships games we made, etc.
I I like that because, and I've started talking about some of these things, and it's things I believe in because seen it, done it. I've always enjoyed coaching. I like the instructional part of things. Can you see the success? Are the kids seeing success? Do they feel it? Do they understand it? Are they feeling like they're getting better? Because you can tell if kids, they know if they're not getting better, can't catch the ball, it's not fun for them. They want to be able to catch the baseball, right? Because they know if I catch the baseball and I'm stepping on the base, he's out. And that's huzzah. That basic thing, right?
Yeah, it is. And, it's funny, speaking of like my 10U group, it's starting to get where some guys get pretty serious. And when I say guys, coaches and teams get fairly intense about it. And like I said, we have a pretty solid team. We were playing one of the better teams, and if you want to have the best 10-year-old team, the secret is get the biggest and strongest kids, get the oldest 10-year-olds that are legal to have on your team. So you want to have those May and June and July birthdays, and that's how you're going to win the most 10U championships. So if you're a coach and if that's really important to you, there's the blueprint. Go do it and you'll be successful. Last year we were playing one of these teams, and they're just flat better than us, which is fine. And I'm sitting there, and we have the bases loaded, and they are holding us on at third base, second base, and first base. Now, keep in mind, we're losing this baseball game, and we ended up losing. And I just thought to myself, I am 100% certain that my kids are going to be in a better spot when these kids are in high school than the team we just lost to by 8 runs.
Mm-hmm.
That just for, and that is kind of what I'm talking about from a development standpoint. It's like, hey, just because you won a game at 10U doesn't mean your kids are necessarily on the correct path.
I agree. When I started coaching with my son's team, I called my brother-in-law. He'd been coaching a long time. He actually tried out. I think I've told you this. He tried out. They used to have open tryouts in Major League Baseball, and he tried out for the San Diego Padres and was offered a contract. That's back in the day, right there. And he's always had a really good knowledge of structure in baseball and things of that nature. And so I called him and talked to him quite a bit about, how, setting things in motion. I know a basic understanding of instruction and whatnot. So I just talked to him, picked his brain a little bit about different things. And one of the things that I think is very interesting with this, Kevin, with when you're talking about kids at this age, like you said, I did this when we got to 8U and the baseball changed. It wasn't the soft ones from machine pitch and whatnot. I took the baseball, I put it in the hands of each kid, and I said, "You pass it around." I said, "You feel the baseball." And they all pass it around. I come back and I said, "So, is the baseball hard?" And they're like, "Yeah." I said, "Will it hurt if it hits you?" And they're all looking at me because as dads, everybody else says, "It don't hurt. The baseball don't hurt you." And the kids are looking at you like trying to figure out, is this a trick question, coach? And I'm like, yes, it will hurt, guys. That baseball's hard. If somebody's throwing it and it hits you, it will hurt. That's why we have a glove. And that's why we talk to you about how to position your glove, how to catch a baseball, because we do not want you to get hurt. And just those basic things like that. And I think that builds trust. And if an 8-year-old doesn't trust you, they're not going to listen to you too much. And I know people go, "What? You're crazy." No, that's real. That's I think a very true thing, and you have to develop that a trust in that, because if you're telling the kid, "Oh, the baseball don't hurt," and he gets whacked with a baseball and said, "Coach just lied to me, that hurt." I think those are real things, and I think that starts early on, and I think you have to develop those things within that. So you're building basic trust and values within the kids and what's being said to you. So if they know right off the bat, coach is telling me things that are real and true and whatnot, if he's trying to help me do something, I think he pays more attention to that. And I don't think we do that enough with the young kids.
Makes a lot of sense.
These were things that I just kind of gravitate to. And then I found, I talked to him, give me 3 basic throwing drills, because how much are you going to give an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old? Give me 3 basic drills that we can do, that we can just do in repetition, to where these kids understand basic patterns and movements, and getting them to do that and allow if their athleticism begins to come through, if you got basic patterns within that, it usually takes care of itself. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and that's my other huge piece that, especially with the younger guys, you don't want to get super mechanical with these kids. You want to talk about positioning. Hey, this is how we stand in a batter's box. We got to hold our hands high. This is how we line up our hands. This is where our feet need to be in relation to the plate. My bat needs to be able to cover the outside edge. When we're pitching or throwing, this is how we grip the baseball. We lift our knee and we go, shoulders pointing at our target, etc. But beyond the setup, you don't want to get too much deeper than that. And I think that's another huge pitfall in youth coaching, is there's too much coaching of mechanics. Let those kids be athletic. Tell them to throw the ball hard. Tell them to swing the bat hard. And beyond that, other than working on the setup with it, let them figure things out. My favorite thing to do with my 2 sons is, I see flaws in their swings or their whatever it is, and I'll just put on a little video of a certain hitter that I like a lot, and we'll just watch him hit, and I'll say, "Hey, Tommy, do that. Try this." And then he does his own version, as opposed to me saying, "Hey, you got to start with your hands here, and your knob needs to stay inside the ball," and like getting him, even if he's trying to do what I'm saying, they're not going to be able to do all that, or they're going to be thinking about that when the pitch is happening, instead of watch that big leaguer or whoever your favorite hitter is and just do what he does, and just see what happens.
Yeah. One of the things that, and it's a pet peeve of mine, I see a lot of kids, we talk about playing catch, and kids are always playing, catch and throw, or I mean, throw and chase. Um, that's what you see a lot of. And, I like what you said there because you do. And we always try, I did this, just a basic break and throw drill. You put kids in athletic stance and say, break your hands and throw the baseball at the target. And then we just watch the kids do that. Maybe come over and go, hey, hold the ball this way. And just make sure you turn your body and hit the target. And you'd be surprised how quickly the kids adjust to that and the feel. And then start stepping and throwing. Just let their body move through it. And I think if you do a couple of things in that respect, it makes it easier for the kids to understand what a throwing motion is. Because, like you said, then when you get into pitching and all those other dynamics, those are different. But just being able to throw the baseball to first base so that you can record an out, that's what you should be focusing on. Can you record an out? Can you field the baseball, throw the baseball, catch the baseball?
And I think I know my families are probably sick of me saying this to them, and they know my background and whatnot. And I think they think maybe I'm holding back on them. I always tell them the most important thing or the best thing you could do for your son in terms of their development is have them be an elite catch player. So anytime we have a warm enough day in the wintertime, I say, hey, at the end of practice, hey, grab your brother, grab your dad, grab a neighbor, grab your mom, whoever, make them go play catch with you in the backyard twice this week. If it's, this week, that's not going to work with the snow. But, more often than not, we have days in the middle of the week when kids can get outside and play catch. The best thing you can do for your development as a youth player is to learn how to play a great game of catch. It's going to build your arm strength. It's going to make you better at catching. It's going to make you better at throwing. And, today so much of it is focused on, hey, I'm going to go to the batting cage. I'm going to just go get some swings. And that is good. It's not bad, but I'm 100% certain going to play catch is more valuable than going to hit.
We always played.
Take that to the end.
I agree. We always played defense. You had to get 3 outs before you got to hit, period. That's because hitting was fun. Kids love to get the bat and start swinging it. That's the fun. That's the reward. You get 3 outs. Guess what you get to do? We get to hit. Huzzah. Right?
That is right. And at the end of the day, now we haven't quite got to this point where I've shifted my focus. When I get my 10-year-old group or like middle schoolers, then I'm going to start preparing them to make a high school baseball team, how to be a good player for high school baseball. And, and I feel like that's my ultimate job as a youth coach. Now, again, we're not there yet. We're still learning the very building blocks and getting a good foundation. But once we get to about 6th grade, that's where my focus is going to shift is, hey, now I'm going to teach these kids, hey, we're going to learn how to put down a bunt. We're going to learn some more advanced running techniques and, maybe a secondary pitch on the mound or stuff like that. And you can start building out from there. But truthfully, if you ask a high school coach and you got an elite catch player on that team, a guy that can really throw and really pick the baseball, really catch it, he's going to have a spot for that kid every single time. And I mean this at the very top levels of high school baseball. You go over to whoever you think the top class 6 is, and you tell that high school coach that you got one of the top guys at catching the baseball and throwing the baseball in his program, that kid will be a starting baseball player for him, 100%.
It's good advice, folks. That's good advice right there. Kevin Moulder, appreciate your time today, sir.
It was a fun subject, a little different than we normally do, but one we're both passionate about.
Absolutely. And I think we have to, yeah, we talk a lot, but the reason we're able to talk about high school baseball as we do is because of youth baseball. And go ahead.
I was going to say one more great thing, and
Yeah.
I did this with both of my teams. Um, Take your little group out and go watch a high school baseball game or a college baseball game.
Absolutely. I've been stressing that, especially around here. And to this point, folks, but when we're out at youth baseball games, when we're out at a tournament, and Drew can attest to this over there, he hears me ask this question all the time. Where are you going to high school? And the kids usually know where they end up being at high school, especially when you're talking to an 11, 12, 13-year-old. They pretty much know where they're going to be going to high school, unless, some of them go, maybe I'm going to go to DeSmet or, one of those. But for the most part, they know. My next question is, do you know how good they are? Have you seen them play? No. Do you know who the coach is? No. Have you been to a camp? Oh, yeah, I've been to a camp. Well, then how do you not know who the coach is? Because these camps, so I don't know, what's going on in some of these things this way. But most of these kids have not seen a high school baseball game from the high school they're going to. I think that is some of the best advice you can give people, Kevin. I love that, is go see a high school baseball game.
And at the middle school level, it's something that, hey, they can start watching and pick up on some things that, at my guys' level, at the 8 and 10-year-old level, those guys might as well be big leaguers. They ask for autographs, they look up to them, like it's awesome, and it makes them want to be them. If
Yes.
that, so, and I think that there's a lot of value in that as well.
Absolutely. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in today. We hope that you enjoyed this subject matter. These are big talking points. Please leave a comment below. We want to have these conversations. This isn't about negativism, as even when Kevin was making the point about his team. We're not trying to shed negative. We just want to have the conversation, because I think there are things within youth baseball that we can do better. And and I think having the conversation, bringing these points to bear, I think is what we have to do, having these conversations. And I applaud, we've reached out to these clubs around the area, and we're going to go to the clubs. We're going to sit and have these conversations with the club directors and whatnot. And I applaud that, man. That's fantastic, because, we should be having these conversations so people, parents, and whatnot understand what youth baseball should be. And if you need to take the advice of this gentleman sitting here across from me, talking about these things today. He's been in it, still does it. He has his kids here. That is good advice. Kevin, I appreciate it, buddy.
You got it.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like. It helps the algorithm. Share it out with your friends. If this is something that's important to you, comment below. We appreciate that. Join the YBM Club. Please. Legacy members, 50% off right now. Go to youthbaseballmidwest.com. Hit the YBM Club tab. Sign up. Support what we do here. We appreciate it very much. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, Kevin, you know what they hear. We can't say that to the little guys.
Okay.
So we'll be more encouraging. Hey, have some fun out there, right?
That's right. There we go.
We'll say it all for all of them, the hitters as well. They know what they got to do. We'll see you all next time, folks.